Today, as we come to a special day in the church calendar, it's a day where we talk about the transfiguration of the Lord. Just to mark a difference between two different stages. As we are done with one season, we're saying we're coming very close. And they put the Transfiguration Sunday in a special place. Even that's reflected in the color, We cannot turn purple until next week. So today we are on the white color. So there's the church calendar is trying to put a special place for this Sunday, for the Transfiguration Sunday. And I hope that this Sunday will be a special Sunday, not only according to the church tradition, not only according to the calendar and the colors and all of these things that we are grateful for. I hope this will be a different day for you, to be a special day to mark your own life today. So this Transfiguration, I wonder about where this word coming from. And there are many definitions for the word Transfiguration. And in many languages, it reflects that it's somebody is at their best performance. If you are thinking of an acting, you say this actor is going to win the Oscar for what they are doing. If you are thinking of an athlete, you think that they will get the top reward in whatever they are doing. People cannot function in their life always on this level. There is always a special moment where they function in a high level. And we see that in many sports, If you ask about what's the golden days for the Vikings, when they were, how far they made it, Or if you have a favorite soccer team. But there is no way in history you find a group or an athlete or somebody that act to be on the level of just glowing and being at the top all the time. So then the word is being the top of the performance is a unique moment in everybody's life. Here is the warning and the concern. When you experience that one of your best moments is a musician, preacher, players, whatever you are doing, these moments are not going to last for a long time. These moments, it's like this sunshine, this shooting star that's come in your life this way. And just be careful, because you're going to be upset. Because you would like to glow all the time. You would like to be the top on whatever you are doing every day and everything you are doing. And that's not the way. That's not what we are going to learn today about that. God shows sometimes His shine in a very big way to get our attention. Not to tell us that you can all the time walk on water and be perfect and have this blooming, wonderful moment in your life. You will have these moments to remind you, to encourage you, to say if we are just walking and bored in life, and sometimes suddenly we see like a big light happens. What happens? We naturally turn to the light to see what's happening. This is many times that's God's way. God is not all the time playing fireworks with us every day, every moment. But He uses sometimes a very extreme fireworks in our life to get our attention. Say, look here. Listen. See, there is something is going on in your life or in the world. So these words about the Transfiguration is not just to make you happy and be self-satisfied, but to say there is a reason behind even a moment when you think that it's your top moment in your life. We can think about Transfiguration in different contexts as an opportunity to everybody to see things from different perspectives. When you keep walking on the road and everything is okay and boring, and suddenly something happens to get your attention. Is God using this methodology sometimes to get our attention? Before we go into the Transfiguration event, we need to go back a little bit. What happened between Jesus and the disciples in Mark chapter 9. Many amazing things happened. Like in one, the disciples given the power to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. Second, Herod and the Jewish community were wondering about this new movement and about this guy that's named Jesus Christ, who he is. What about these people around him? The third thing was feeding the 5,000 people. The fourth thing that happened before we come into the Transfiguration event was a very serious discussion between Jesus and the crowds when they were asking about who are you. A very serious discussion when Jesus asked the crowds that you followed me because you saw something I did good. Jesus, on the fifth part that I want to keep in your mind, he released a shocking news about his death and his resurrection. If you forgot everything else from the big list about what happened, this is the one that I want to keep in your mind. Before he jumped into this gloomy, wonderful event, before that, Christ was sitting and said, by the way, friends, I'm going to be killed on the cross and dead. And think what happened to them in this moment. We know, as we just to remind you about, if we are quoting the Gospel of Mark, Mark is the oldest and the shortest. But if you want to know more details, like you go to Luke and other Gospels. In the Gospel of Luke, you see more like there were 8 days when Christ told his disciples this very, very bad news. I'm not going to be the guy that's showing you everything great. I'm actually to be killed. Bye. What do you think happened to these disciples? From their hopes being up to like silence and wonder about what's wrong with this guy. We picked the wrong guy. We are following the wrong guy. He's telling us bad news. But Mark connected to that he showed that they were so down, and then he's taken them to another place. After 8 days of these ups and downs, it seems Jesus gave them time to digest and to reflect on what he just said 8 days before. Jesus extended his hand by reaching out to these 3 disciples. And many rumors, people will say, oh, he picked his favorite disciples. But also, we can debate that. We didn't know if they were favored or not. And as I believe Christ did not have a favorite, but we like to think that he has a favorite. From his actions, you will say maybe John was his favorite, or this or that. But actually, you can see it, that Christ may pick these 3 disciples because maybe they were the most disturbed one among the other disciples. Maybe because they are the weakest one, that they were really so angry and feel so disappointed by this news that they delivered from Christ. So you not only can see it as, oh, he picked the favorite, he actually picked the weaker, the most disturbed one. The one that their heart is boiling and their mind is going all directions about, I think we follow the wrong guy. So as we see that Christ picked these 3 disciples, Jesus teaching us today how to communicate with each other in many forms. Jesus was close enough to his disciples' needs. He knows who is really up and who is down. Who really needs more intervention and who is really in a good place that they can continue on themselves. Who needs immediate care and intense care, and who really needs, they can continue on their own for a while. A good shepherd is not the shepherd that all the time provides the same food, the same amount, the same protection to all sheep. The good shepherd is the one that knows who needs more care, who needs more to be carried sometimes on the shoulder because they cannot even go and eat by their own self. Who knows who is really, that's one of the sheep that's really is having malnutrition and they need more extensive food to get them on their feet. It's not just doing the job. Here is the food, here is the protection. Everybody's equal. Justice. Nope. Justice is not about giving everybody the same amount, but giving attention according to everybody's needs. If somebody's so weak and sick, do not say, I just did my job. Here is the food. You go and eat on your own. Maybe that's the human definition of justice, but God's justice is always wrapped in love. Who needs the extra care? Who needs the extra support? Who needs the more to be like to hug them, tap on the shoulders because they are so down? This is the wonderful thing that we can learn about the story about Christ is looking after His disciples, knowing who is who needs what. They are not just bunch of 12 people. You come, do my job. Here is the business. Here is the agenda. You follow my commands. You say, yes, sir. And that's what you have to do. Christ said, we are family. We care about each other. And if we are not capable to see what's happened between us, we are not family. If we just walk like strangers who ride on the train or on a bus or an airplane, that's happened. We're forced to sit next to each other, but we have no idea who we are. But we cannot say the same about family. Family knows when somebody's attitude is different. When somebody used to be laughing and in a good spirit, and we see them, they're so down. And when we know that somebody used to be talkative and energized about everything, and we see them different, and we can't just walk and say, oh, I can tell, I can not know. Family knows. Because we know our personality. We know who is acting what, which one is the quiet, which one is the talkative, which one that's like to get the more attention, which one is the humble, which one is the energy kind of like gathering. So that's happened not among strangers. That's happened among friends. So Christ is telling us, you are my buddies. You are not just guys I hired for business and do the business and go. I care about you. And that's why I'm helping you. So when my moment comes, you know that I told you about these things. And the way I took care of you guys, you will take care of each other. Jesus was close enough to know His disciples' needs. He invited the three of them to the journey to the top mountain to climb. Mountain was like climbing 4,300 steps. Just put this in your mind. When He took them from down in the valley to go up to the mountain, we know that they climb around 4,300 steps. Do you imagine that? How we get tired after 10 steps, right? 5 steps, 2 steps. Keep that in your mind. These guys walked from the valley to the top mountain, climbing around 4,300 steps. Why I want to highlight that? Before you blame them for whatever they said or did not say, do not forget that they seriously were tired. Do not ignore our physical tiredness, that how can impact the way we do things. More than almost 20 years ago, when I used to still live in Egypt, and we used to do like some sites, historical studies around the sites in Egypt. And one of these sites was a place called St. Catherine, Mount St. Catherine. It's in Sinai, Egypt. I'm sure you heard this name many times. So there is a big important site for Jews and Christians in Mount Sinai until today. If you go to Egypt, that's a very, very important site for pilgrims from all around the world. So for Jews, you come because you know this is where Moses, we're not sure, but that's what we claim that Moses received the 10 Commandments on the top of this mountain in Sinai. And for Christian, because this ancient St. Catherine Monastery is one of the oldest monasteries in the whole world. It's established around the 4th and the 5th century AD when Christianity became the big religion. And St. Helena, one of the Roman Empire figures, built the church and gathered the cross and all of this story that we know about what happened. So it's established, and this church is still run by Greek nuns until today. So for many reasons, people from all the world, they come to study this place. So in this year, like I believe around 2004, was first time to climb Mount Sinai to see the site where most Christians and Jews believe this is the place where Moses received the 10 Commandments. I remember on that night, I started our journey from St. Catherine Monastery in the valley. The Bedouins were our tour guides who told us that you have to start climbing by midnight. You cannot handle the sunshine if you cannot make it before the sunshine, you will not be able to reach the top mountain. So around 1 or 2 in the morning, we start to climb in a very cold weather, but because of climbing out, we start to warm up. And we could not imagine that we can do it during the sunshine. Besides, it was very exhausting and scary to walk in the dark, and there is a big chance to get lost if you are alone. Remember, you are in Sinai Desert, where the Jews were lost for 40 years. Don't forget that. It was an amazing how many nationalities you can meet and how many languages you can hear on the road to the top. In the middle of the road, I start to feel sick. I start to throw up and start to feel really like almost I'm collapsing, because that was a very tough. I said, I wish I can turn around and don't continue this thing. I don't know why all these Christians and Jews care much about this difficult trip. But in the middle of the road, I was very sick. But suddenly, many people around me came to offer help. Many who speak in different languages that I don't know what they are doing. But I know one thing. They just say, we are on one journey. Maybe our languages, our nationalities are separating us. But we really think that there is something happening as we journey together on the road. I had no connection with these people except being on the road together, where we share the same fear and the same excitement. Once we get there, what are we going to see? Once we get there, what's there up on the mountain? So every time you get sick and tired, you remind yourself of the excitement about the experience of being up there and thinking and imagining this is the site where actually Moses listened to God and talked to God and received the Ten Commandments. And that was the encouragement that I received from all these foreigners from all the world. About people said great things. The sun looks so unique when the sunshine comes from there and you are on the top mountains, and you will be able to see like Jordan and part of Israel and many places when you are on the top there. This kind of good news kind of like filled me up and felt like I can continue now. Even I did really cheat. They continued. So at this time, I hired one of the Bedouins to give me his camel so I can ride his camel to the top. But part of the journey was to go on your feet and feel the physical pain. But I cheated at this point. I said I can use the camel to get me up as far as I can. I didn't know what happened between Jesus and his disciples on the road to the mountains. But I think that something happened not only on the top. Most Christians will talk about Christ being just in this appearance of white colors. He's like nobody can watch him. He's so shining. If we put it in a very simple way, shining. And we forgot about this. What happened on the road? These people that's walking around together, what they were talking about? Were they agreeing on everything? Were they quiet? Were they honest to open their mouths and say, Christ, I think there is something wrong with what you just told us 8 days ago? Or they were just looking and staring at each other, We call the language of the eyes, and nobody say any words, but the eyes is full of millions of words. We do not know what exactly happened on the road or on the top. But we need to know one thing. On the top of the mountain, but also on the road through the fellowship of the walking together, Christ and his 3 disciples were on different pages. The different pages of understanding who God is. What is God's mission in the world? When Christ was telling them, I'm going to be crucified, he knows this is part of the good news. For them, this is a sad news. So they are both sound like they're speaking different languages. And Christ understands that he's coming from a higher place. He did not condemn them. He did not call them, you are not smart enough to understand what I'm saying. You are just understanding all the surface. You do not go into the depth. He was very patient to know, yes, I am Christ, but also do not forget, He's God. Nobody can compete with God. Yes, He is Christ the human, but He's Christ the God who knows the past and the present and the future. He knows He can read your mind. He can see what you are thinking of. So also do not forget when we talk about Christ the human, but also, so He was understanding that where they are coming from. And Christ saying, if I am just human like them, I will feel the same way they are feeling. So the Christ and the three disciples were on different pages of how to understand God's message and how to achieve it. The disciples were open enough to accept Jesus' invitation. And I want you to give them credit for that. After they got the bad news from Christ that He's going to die, the normal reaction, yep, you have your way, we have our way. After this bad discussion, I think we cannot continue together. We are not on the same road. But actually, even they were not happy. They were having a lot of things inside their mind and their heart, but they still did not give up on this guy. Yes, he is telling us very weird news we do not like, but did not give up on him. And the reason we believe in that, because they accepted his invitation and say, buddies, let's go, let's hike together, let's go to the top mountains. Let's go and hike together and try to see. The disciples were open enough to accept Jesus' invitation, and they walked together. While the disciples were struggling and questioning everything about Jesus Christ, they kept treating Jesus as the leader. Do not look down at Him. They're still listening to Him. They're still following Him. They're still on the road with Him. It is easy to judge these disciples by being sleepy and missing this precious event. But do not forget, they were physically tired and emotionally distracted from all different aspects. We should give them credit for sticking with Jesus after what He said. They respond positively to Jesus' invitation to accompany Him on the road. Remember, the journey happened after 8 days of shocking news about Jesus' death. And He gave them time to process this hard news. He took them with Him to the mountain, and on the top, they experienced something that's unique. They saw somebody they can identify with, like Moses and Elijah. Moses and Elijah being in a scene to say that, oh, Christ is really a special one. Between the way they understood the past and what Jesus revealed in the present, they were understanding that, okay, so here is Moses, here is Elijah, here is Christ. Wonderful. We have the top people of the Israelites, Jews, Moses and Elijah, and also we have Christ. That's perfect. They got some idea, but the idea was not clear. The idea that they put Moses and Elijah and Christ on the same level. But the point was trying God to show them, do you believe in Moses? Do you believe in Elijah? Do you respect Moses? Do you respect Elijah? Definitely. Any Jew will say that with a closed eyes. But the idea is saying, then you put Christ on the same place. Christ is higher. And that was the big, this is really the transfiguration. It's not Christ being shining, but the voice that's coming from heaven to say, He is unique, but His uniqueness is above everybody. Even as much as you love Elijah and Moses as the top figure in your religion as a Jew, Christ is different. This is the meaning of the shining of Christ. I think Christ was shining all the time, not only in this moment, but they could not see it. They have their own way. They want to see Christ as a political leader, as a guy that will come with an army to free them. Christ is being as a good leader, but not as the Son of God. I wonder a lot about the divine voice affirming that Jesus is the only beloved Son. One reason I think was to try to say nobody compete with Jesus. I know how much you love Moses and Elijah. And if you are a Jew, you really understand the place of Moses and Elijah. Nobody can compete with them. But say, even with the respect and the love you have for Moses, Christ is higher and better. This is one reason that the voice from heaven coming say, this is my only beloved Son. Was this message only for the disciples? I wonder about what is this message also for Christ? The first thing that we think about, this is the message God is telling the disciples. You know, this guy is very special. Love him, respect him, walk with him. I think there is nothing wrong with that too. But I think it's more powerful to think that Christ as human, he needs to hear that too. Christ is the human. He needs to hear that he's not alone. If we believe Jesus was fully human, then he can go through different feelings like us. He can be down and up. We do not forget that when he was really in deep distress before the cross. We do not forget when he cried on the cross and said, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. It's God, God, why are you forsaken me? This is the human part of Christ. To tell us, yes, he is God, but he's one of us. And when we talk about this, does not make Jesus less but more real and engaged. And he makes him like me. So when I'm down, when I'm distressed, when I'm really feeling like I'm not acting good, I feel Christ to say, son or daughter, I've been there. I know it. I feel your feel. We all need the support, the spiritual support. We need somebody to tell us that we are not alone. We need to hear that from time to time, regardless. If you are a very strong spiritual person, or you are average or less average, whatever, at the end, we are human. The miracle is to see the transfiguration in many ways that transfer our lives and minds toward ourselves and others. I believe Jesus was shining the whole time, but they were not able to see that. On the mountaintop, we cannot know what really happened exactly, but something big enough to change the disciples from being tired and sleepy and worried and stressed and confused to come down with full of energy. From being closed eyes and closed minds, for their eyes to be widely open and wonder about, oh my gosh, this guy is beyond our understanding. This guy, he is something, you know. We thought him to be something, but I think he's bigger than what we thought of him. This was the moment of transfiguration that can transfer all of us every day. And I hope it will bring to our day a moment to stop, look around, and find the glowing spots in your life that God wants to talk you through. Amen.